Would you ever sell your soul to the film industry? Yes or no?
Didn't we already?
Not our souls. Maybe like 4 years, uh, $200,000 worth of money.
I feel like that's our
To...
souls.
Okay, well, yeah. Oh, okay. Hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Pineapple Headache. Today we're gonna talk about our film school woes.
Yeah, there are many.
Today is April 1st. It's April Fool's Day. And you know what? I think sometimes me and Madison just talk about how we're clowns.
Yeah, we're the best. I think the biggest clownery I've ever done in my life was just all my film school moments, to be
I think there are
honest.
a lot of moments. Yeah, I think there are a lot of moments in film school where I have felt a sort of embarrassment and also genuine confusion and disdain for a lot of people there.
Honestly, yeah. Just why? Why are film school people the way that they are?
I don't know. But like, why don't we go into it since like we have 4 years worth of film school in our heads, so
Film school, film internships,
yeah.
being on set,
Yeah.
watching, consuming media in a whole new perspective.
Well, okay. Well, like let's give a refresher for like how
We ended up
we got
there.
into yeah, how we ended up in the film school.
I think we both thought we were a fluke, if I'm remembering correctly. Because didn't we both just be like, I don't have a portfolio, but here you go. And then we just got it.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Well, I meant like, well, cause you have talked about it before how you got into writing in like the
Yeah.
Marvel episode and everything, but like for those who haven't listened to that episode, just give like a brief
Yeah, so I
beginning.
got really into creative writing, specifically fan fiction, partially embarrassing. In high school, so I was like, oh, this is something I want to learn how to do better in college so that I could learn how to do it for money in life because every other job just did not sound appealing to me. But also capitalism exists. So then I was like, I also was interested just in LMU as a school already. So then I saw they had screenwriting. They had no creative writing major. So I was like, screenwriting seems close enough. And then I applied and I was like, we'll just see what happens. Maybe I won't stick with screenwriting. I don't know. And then there was an optional portfolio. I had nothing to show, so I did not do the optional portfolio. And I managed to still get in. So I don't know how that happened, but I got in and then I went there and then jokes on me, I ended up sticking with screenwriting for the whole 4 years. The end.
Wow, what a beautiful story. And when was the last time you opened up your final draft, your screenwriting
Probably
software?
around the month we graduated, May 2020. So it's now 2021. So it's been almost 11 months probably since I last opened up Final Draft.
Good for you.
Yeah. I'll get back there eventually.
But you're still writing though,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I'm writing. I just kind of went back to like prose format because it's what I feel like I'm best at and most comfortable with and stuff.
Back to she's gone back to her roots essentially, back to
Yeah,
the
back to my
beginning.
roots, and also just because it's like there's just a lot more technical stuff with screenwriting, and like everything is really different structurally, and like everything. So it's like, when you're just writing like stream of consciousness on a Word doc, like you don't really have to do anything. But with this
Mm-hmm.
script, it's like a lot more structured, and you have to do a lot more I mean, you still have to do a lot of that stuff if you're writing really seriously, like a whole novel or something. But yeah, I don't know. Writing a script is just a lot. But what is your film school origin story?
I've never thought about filmmaking or ever just like making videos until sophomore year of high school when I
Mm-hmm.
was taking a speech class, but I was too shy to like, actually go up and do a speech. So my teacher gave the option of making a video. So I picked up my mom's old Canon PowerShot camera and learned iMovie and like taught myself iMovie and then
iMovie slaps.
yeah, and then here I am later.
Wow.
Same thing with you, where I didn't have a portfolio to show because I've never made a short film. I've like only been making like class project videos.
Mm-hmm. Very high school.
I got into the film school. And this is also, it's kind of funny because not that we didn't, work hard in film school, but LMU's film school is like the top 10 in the nation.
Oh yeah, it was like ranked sixth, I think, when we started, and then like now it's like
Yeah.
ranked eighth or something.
Yeah, so like
But we were
me and
good enough.
Madison,
We were good enough.
yeah, we were good enough, but it's kind of funny because like me and Madison are graduates from like one of the best film schools in the United States, and yet we still sit here being like, wow, what was that buffoonery?
Yeah, what was that? The peak clownery moments of college and film school, and
Yeah.
just the whole professional
Um,
life that goes with it.
I mean, like, it's not like not going to school was an option because obviously my parents would be like, why would you not want to go to school?
Same.
So,
Also, it's like
so
seems
it's
so hard
like,
to get like a job without a degree now.
yeah, but even more so, it's an arts degree. Like,
Oh yeah, you know.
even if you did have a film degree, which I guess if you're trying to break into the industry through like big corporate studio, like big studios and stuff like that, then yeah, it's like probably gonna be helpful. But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, it's all about experience and like what you know and
Yeah.
what you can do. That's gonna get your foot in the door. And also, above all, it's also the people who you know.
Yeah, which I feel
Cause
like that's what
there,
film school's probably best for is the
cause it's
networking
like there are
part.
some people, yeah, there are some people where I'm like, how are you in the position that you are? And then you see
Oh, you
their
mean like
connections.
most like white men in Hollywood?
Yeah.
Like the mediocre white men who get handed blockbusters on a silver platter? I wonder this every
Yeah.
day.
Mhm. I don't know. And I think like that's even like present in like film school.
Oh, I agree.
So so like let's just get into the tea of all of it. I don't even know where to begin with film school. Like,
The classes were long and at night. How about that? They were three
oh,
hours
okay.
long and would be like 4 to 7, 7 to 10. What was that?
I used to have I think every semester I used to have a day where I have back to back to back 3-hour film classes, and they would all be in rooms or like studios where there would be no windows. So I would literally walk into the film school during the day and then walk out and it's like dark at night. Yeah,
Yeah.
imagine just being like in just this small space with like nine other people for like a long period of time.
Yeah. Oh, and then the classes were really small. They were like 10 people ish.
Which I didn't mind because I feel like
Same.
that's the best way to learn,
Especially
kind of
with
film because
creative stuff.
yeah, because it's all about like bouncing off each other and like developing relationships. But honestly, there were a lot of people in my classes where I was kind of over it. Like, I was like, we're not going to get along. I don't really want to get to
Yeah.
know
Like
you.
some people were like, I don't know. They just had like they just thought they were all that in a bag of chips, like for nothing. Like I remember when I had to take intro to film production as a freshman, even though I was screenwriting, they like wanted us to still learn some production stuff. There was this guy in my class. I can't remember his name, but I guess I shouldn't name names anyway. But there was this guy in my class with like a total like complex. He was like a first year student, but he was older, but he would commute to LMU from like I don't know where, but oh, Thousand Oaks, which is like
That's a
up
far
that
drive,
yeah. So
man.
and it's like I get that's a far drive, but he would like have this whole like complex about it, and then like wouldn't show up for stuff, and then would like throw other people under the bus, and was just he was like not a team player at all. Which like if you're doing like I would say like 90% of film stuff requires you to be a team player. So if you ever are in film school and you encounter people who are definitely not team players, run in the complete opposite direction because they are not
Hmm.
going to help. They're just only going to drag you down. They're not going to help you advance in the class or in your career or anything because it's like if they get people who get too self-obsessed, like if they can't, bring themselves back down to everybody else's level to get the job done, then no one's going to get anything done.
You know what's interesting about film students though that I feel like is prevalent in every person is that film students kind of have an ego,
Oh,
whether or not it's like
yes.
blown out out
I
of
think that to
proportions,
be a film
or
student,
like me where I was.
yeah, well, I think to be a film student, you kind of have to have that energy of you thinking that you're the main character. I think we just all were that.
I think we all were either you had like really bad imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
which made you feel like the main character, or you thought you were like the shit, which also makes you feel like the main
I was
character. And
definitely
those are
the
the
former.
Yeah, and I definitely also had the imposter syndrome because like you said, there were just people in the class who had these complexes, and I was like, it was like as a freshman, I was like, I didn't know anybody. I was like, didn't understand how film school worked. I barely understood
Film.
like film at all. So I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I feel really
Yeah.
like I was very scared to go into my classes a lot of the time because I was like, everyone's gonna think I'm stupid. What are they gonna think of me?
Same.
And
I was like, my thing was always like, I just don't want to be the worst one. Like, I don't need to be the best. I
yeah,
just don't want to be that person who stands out as the worst. But I definitely was
yeah.
like the worst in some of my screenwriting classes. Like, when I had to write a whole feature
I
film, oh my god, I was definitely the worst.
I really tried a lot of the time. And like at times I feel like it kind of came off as desperate
Yeah.
sometimes. And it's just like I don't know, it's just kind of like I just wanted to do my best and I think I put too much pressure on myself when really film school is just a way to just like help you train and like
Mm-hmm.
just basically like a training ground to help you make mistakes, which is what it should be, right? But I feel like with so many people who are so early in their careers who think they're everything and
Yeah.
think they know a lot breeds kind of an unhealthy environment to be able to like do that because in some classes everything was fine. Like I really did end up growing
Mm-hmm.
relationships with people in certain classes because of the atmosphere that was created, but
For
that's
real.
because of the people there
Yeah,
and
the
not
people
like
and also like the professor and like the tone of the
yeah.
class and all that.
When it came to looking for professors, because I mean, I will not deny that the film school is a pretty white space,
Oh my god, yeah.
which also added to like the feeling of imposter syndrome because, you know, like I said before, like I never really grew up around white people, and also to go to like a PWI
Mm-hmm.
and also going into a creative space where you are meant to be vulnerable with yourself and try to create authentic stories based on your experience and then to like pitch your stories and for them to be like I don't really get it.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay.
It's
Like
just
when
like
I
great.
made, yeah, like when I made my senior thesis film about Catholic school retreats that I wrote with
Oh yeah.
Madison.
And people's
And
notes.
people were just like, why is it in this location? Why is it like this? Like, why do they have to be away from everyone? And I'm like, it's a retreat.
Oh my god,
And they
yeah.
like gave me all these questions that were like kind of condescending, all for them to say at the end that they were like, I don't know, I just never been in a retreat before, so like I don't really know. And I'm just like, okay, so then why are you like why are you giving me this feedback? And why are you asking these questions?
Makes you wonder, or every
If you
time.
don't know,
Yeah, if you don't know, like I would, and then I would always write like stories where it was like about like gay people, and I had this one. My feature film was about like it was basically a love story between like two girls who were best friends, and so like they were both like openly like established, like at least in my mind they're already established openly queer characters where it's like, you know, they didn't need to have a coming out scene because everybody already knew them and knew that they're in the story. Everybody knew them and knew that they were gay, and then like I got a note from a presumably straight person in my class who was like, "Why isn't there like a coming out scene?" And I was like, "Cause there are people like there's a life
because
after you
they don't
come
need
out. Like stories,
to.
you
Yeah.
can still have things and stories and stuff happen to you after you come out, which is what this is. Like, not everything is Love Simon, honey. Like,
It's just I don't know, like there was just a very like clear, prevalent perspective that was
yeah,
apparent in the film school that I didn't.
if you
Yeah.
deviated from it or came from a complete like just or like challenged it in some way, people were like lost their minds. They could not comprehend.
So my major is film and TV production, right? So we had to create our own short films, right? So we had to start from
Mm-hmm.
the beginning, basically do the screenwriting part and lead all the way through to actually making the short film. So I would just like sit in class and hear a lot of a lot of people pitch their stories. And now I'm not saying like all white people are like this, but a lot of like white male classmates of mine in my class, I'd be like, the story is so boring. Like I feel like I've seen this story
Yeah, it
before
just wasn't
and I
always like
don't
a unique. It would just a lot of stories just didn't feel very
know.
unique or fresh.
Yeah, it was very shallow and I was just like not interested in it. And I was like, I don't know, it kind of like fed into the thing of like I look at my story and I'm like, my story feels a lot more. genuine like when I would try to tell it, and like
Yeah.
I'd always try to implement themes and like purpose into these stories, and then I look at some of other people and I'm like, what are you supposed to take away from it? You know?
Mhm.
Cuz like I get that filmmaking, like when you're in school, you're learning the technical skills of filmmaking. Like I understand that. I understand that's what people are here to do, but I feel like you're not a filmmaker if you are not trying to dig deeper into what you're trying to do with your craft.
Yeah, and like trying what kind of message you want to send to people.
Yeah, and it's
What
like,
is your contribution to the national discourse of our
yeah,
culture in
because
the
it's like
moment?
if you're a filmmaker, you're making art, and if you're making art, like you're gonna like put your voice out into the discourse of like the present culture of what's happening.
Yeah, like what are you
So
adding
if
to
you're
the
not,
conversation?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm coming from a place where it's like a lot of the stories about, about that I resonate with aren't really prevalent or don't really
Nope.
happen often. So I feel like
Yep.
I have much more, like something that's more unique to
And it's like you have
say.
to be so much more intentional with it.
Yeah. I feel like I really try to put effort into what I want to say and how I want to say it visually in my scripts. That I feel like at times, and I'm not saying all people do this in film school, but at times it tends to be a lot of people don't kind of put that passion and effort
Mhm.
into it, and it like genuinely confuses me because I'm like, why are we in film school in the first place if we're not going to do that?
Yeah, like why are you bothering like investing the time and money into it if you aren't gonna like try to get to that dig into that deep part of you where you can like get that story that you can really add to like the national conversation about our culture and stuff and
Mhm.
just leave
Mhm.
make an impact on people and leave people thinking
Yeah.
about your story like days after they first encounter it.
Yeah, which I'm saying like it's not like you have to make like the deepest, like the most like insightful deep movie. Like obviously you can make, there are those like comedy movies that still like hold a lot of prevalence to to
Mhm.
what happens in the world. And it's like with each genre, there you are given like a set of tools to like dissect the themes and messages that you're exploring in order to understand it in just a different way. So
Mhm.
like what are we all doing in film school if we're not doing that?
That's the real question. And also just the like people's people's taste in content who are
Oh, okay.
students.
Well, okay. Well, I think you know what was always like a thing that would like throw me off, what would make me really anxious. It's always like on the first day of classes, specifically in a film school class, where they're like, "Okay, let's go around the room. Everyone say your name, where you're from, and also say your favorite film."
The classic
Cause I
thing.
feel like I feel like the favorite film is the most important question in that icebreaker introduction phase of each class because it tells you what kind of filmmaker you are.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that yet because I didn't really have taste in films when I was a freshman. Cause like, I'm gonna be honest, I would not really consider myself a cinephile before college
I don't
because I
even
was
think
too
I'm a
busy working.
cinephile now.
Or like I just wasn't like I didn't really watch a lot of movies during like my teenage years because I was too preoccupied with my high school
Mhm.
AP classes and didn't have time to do it. But I have a very rich history with movies and content before that. So there was always I had this weird gap in between where I was like, I don't really have a certain taste in movies or I haven't figured it out yet.
Yes.
But once I did, and when junior year came, I was like, nah, Spy Kids is for the one for me. And that's when I was like, I figured it out. Like, this is what the content I like making.
Mhm.
Yeah, but before then, I would say, like, oh, I really liked Wes Anderson. And at times, I would really try to play it off and be like, oh my gosh, I really like Quentin Tarantino. And now that I look back on it, and
Ew.
I'm like, why would I say that? I don't
Why did you
really,
say that?
because
Gross.
I really wanted to try hard to fit in because that's what a lot of people
Mhm.
in film school would say. Like they'd be like, my favorite film is Pulp Fiction, which like I have watched Pulp Fiction and I understand.
Is it worth the
the
hype?
the cinematic achievement that that movie has, but honestly, I could care less about it.
Yeah, I've seen parts of Kill Bill.
I like Kill Bill. I understand the achievement
The
of the
Bride.
fight scene with all those 70s samurai men or whatever, but again, I don't really care about it. I feel like film is such a subjective thing because it's art. Like, whatever
Yeah.
movie you like, and as long as you're being authentic to yourself and you say it, like, I'll respect it. Like, how we were talking about earlier, and we were like, if we were in class and someone had said, like, oh, my favorite movie is Camp Rock,
That would
I
be
would have
like,
sat back.
yeah, because that would leave such a better, like an actual impression on people.
Yeah, I would have sat back and be like, I respect that. I see what you're trying. Like, can see what kind of
Yeah.
movies you want to make.
And also because it's like, it
Like,
stands out. Because I feel like everybody else draws from the same like 10 or 20 movies.
mm-hmm,
Or like the same 10 or 20 kind of like, or not 10 or 20, but like the same just like kind of indie art house vibe movie or cinephile type movie, and it's just like, yeah, those movies are like good or whatever, like, but also it's like I feel like there's like, it's like this hierarchy of art where it's like the more sophisticated a film is, then automatically that's the better it is. And like,
mm-hmm.
then that means that as someone trying to get into film and making your own content, you have to like subscribe to that stuff. And it's like,
Yeah,
then how are you gonna make quality other like content? Like, because there's tons of movies that are not like that, and tons of shows that are not like that. And
right.
I
What
don't
did
think
you,
the
what
people
did
who
you,
made those were like being like, oh my god, I love like Kill Bill. Like, I'm sure Kenny Ortega was not going around Disney being like, I love Kill Bill so much. Anyway, here's High School Musical.
okay.
Like, no.
What did you say for like
For
your
those
favorite movies
questions,
when it, yeah, for those questions?
I
Be like,
feel
hi,
like
I'm Madison, I'm from Sacramento.
I
My favorite
always
movie is
had a
what?
different answer, like depending on the class and depending on the time. Because I'm one of those people who's way too indecisive to have a top favorite anything really, except for like a few things. Like I have a favorite Pokemon, or I would say I guess like One Day at a Time on Netflix is like my favorite show. But like with movie, I feel like that was just so much harder. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
literally my answer would change like every semester. I'm pretty sure because I was still coming off that fan fiction thing, I was saying like Captain America the Winter Soldier like in the beginning of college, but also because the Russo bros still kind of had clout back then because
Mm-hmm.
they hadn't completely um like fucked up yet in their stuff. But so I would say that. I would say Winter Soldier. I would say once Lady Bird came out, I'm pretty sure I said that once or twice or maybe half the time. I feel like I've also said like The Big Sick with by Camille Nanjiani and his
Mm-hmm.
wife because I think that's also a really fun film. Um yeah, I don't know. Oh, and then there was the one time when I was visiting Amblin Pictures, I think is the full name of the company, for a class, and I introduced myself by saying that my favorite film was Detective Pikachu because this was in 2019, and I was trying to be strategic and stand out and be hashtag quirky. Especially because a lot of people were trying to be all like, "Oh, my favorite movie is the Spielberg one," and it's like, "Congrats, Brett Amblin," and he's
Well, because
not even
that's
here.
yeah.
Like, okay, and I
Way
was
to kiss
like,
up when he's not
yeah,
present.
and I was like, well, I like Detective Pikachu, so yeah. And because I also feel like too, which like, so part of why like most of the time I feel like I would say Lady Bird was like because that's like has respect as like the indie art type thing,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, like I just feel like a lot of indie art things don't feel like the message of it or the story does not really feel accessible to me personally. And it's like Ladybird is
Mm-hmm.
very much still a white centric story, so I don't even think that's completely accessible. But the fact that it was like, about Sacramento made it accessible to me personally. So that was why it was able to rise in the ranks for me, and it felt like a good, like I
Mm.
felt like that would also just work as a really good movie for introducing myself anyway, because it was easy. It's like I'm from Sacramento, so I like Lady Bird. Like I don't have to go that much more in depth. That's it.
Right.
You can just think of me as Lady Bird, and that's that's cool or whatever. But I feel like there was just also this whole like divide because of the whole indie art thing, where it's like we must hate all the big blockbusters and the corporate things and the Marvel and the Disneys of the world and stuff. And while there's like a lot to be said on like the, industry business side of it and what like having so much of like an oligopoly problem is doing to content and film, I feel like it's like it's also a disservice to automatically say, well, no comic book movie can ever be good, or no movie that's about like an actual existing property or franchise like that automatically can't be good because it's not some indie art house thing. And I feel like that's like not the case at all, because like then you have stuff like Black Panther that was like objectively so amazing, and guess what, it was a big multi-million-dollar Disney Marvel thing, but it was still so amazing because they had such talented people behind the camera and in front of the camera who made like this great thing. But it's like I feel like a lot of like spaces like film school and other industry spaces get so like kind of pretentious about it, like no, those movies are just bad, like this is
Well, 'cause
bad because it's like big money, and it's like
it's kind
not
of
necessarily.
interesting. Well, it's interesting because, the movies that are actually like really good, like I mean in terms of storytelling quality,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the stories that are told through like blockbuster hits are typically those that come are by like writers and directors who come from indie backgrounds, like Ryan Coogler with Black
Mm-hmm.
Panther, and then you have Patty Jenkins with Wonder Woman. Like
Mm-hmm.
they both came from such like very we made this film, like we made our indie films from the beginning and now look where we are.
Yeah.
And even then, I was watching an interview from Patty Jenkins. She did a whole webinar on from Sundance Collab, and someone had asked her a question like, does she like the indie scene or the blockbuster studio scene better? And she was like, to be honest, there's a lot more less egotistical people in the blockbuster scene than the indie scene.
Mm. I could
And
see
she's
that.
like, these are two very different like spaces in terms of film, but she was saying how like in the indie scene like a lot of people are more egotistical and more pretentious because in those spaces like awards are the most important thing. Like you're trying to make your film, you're trying to get it recognized, you're trying to win all of these awards.
Mm-hmm.
And so of course you kind of have to have this inflated head of like this has to be great, like this has to be
Mm-hmm.
this amazing thing. And she was also saying like indie films a lot of the time are like high quality but high quality storytelling but low entertainment value. Meanwhile, blockbuster films are high entertainment value but a lot of the times they have low storytelling qualities. So I thought it was like a very interesting point that she brought up and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, okay." Like because it's not like people in blockbusters are just like directly going into blockbusters. Like obviously they have to train from the very beginning with like low budget stuff and eventually build their way up to make
Mm-hmm.
multi-million-dollar movies. So it's like
I see that. Yeah, because it's like I feel like that's a good way of describing it too. Because I feel like in film school, everybody only talks about like the storytelling thing, but it's like plenty of people like if you want to get something that's gonna get to the most common person, like your thing needs to be entertaining too. So you can't just like act like
mhm.
storytelling is inherently more important than the entertainment value, because
Yeah.
like you're only gonna appeal to other like art hoes basically if you only
Yeah.
focus on it being so artistic and deep and this and that. And it's like, what if I just want to make a movie that I think like my mom would want to watch, and my mom's not like going out here looking for indie movies? Like, what if I just want to make stuff where I can think like all the just everyday people I know, because like people like to watch stuff, people will pay to go to the movies to watch stuff. So like, what if I just want to make something where it's like, yeah, people like that could want to just go see it, and then they'll like
Yeah,
enjoy
I
it,
mean,
and then maybe they'll
it's
think
like
about it afterward.
yeah, and it's like you want to make it accessible and digestible, right? Like you kind of have
Mm-hmm.
to find the sweet spot of like this is high tier storytelling, but also like high tier entertainment, like
Mm-hmm.
Black Panther.
Yeah, like that was just such a great like one. And like honestly, like I recently rewatched Winter Soldier for like the first time in a while because of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier on right now. And honestly might be my favorite movie of all time just because of how much of a personal impact it had on me and stuff. Because I also feel like it is a genuinely good movie that also has that balance of like there was like some deep stuff going on, some deep messages about like government surveillance and all that. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
freedom versus surveillance for safety. But then it was also just really entertaining. Like I love the action sequences in it. Like I thought it was like really fun and stuff. So it's like, it just I feel like it doesn't need to be that deep all the time. But like so many film people are just like, no, it must be like negative gazillion feet deep all the time.
Yeah, but I feel like then it's not genuine, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like filmmaking, I feel like at the core, filmmaking is meant to visually show the life experiences that not like we all have. Obviously, everyone's different in this world because obviously, like, we all come from different backgrounds and we all live different lives. But that's the thing with film, right? You are given another perspective to see things differently. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, the storytelling, it obviously dates back to like the beginning, when they're like at
Yeah.
the fire and like telling stories. Well, now we have like evolved into this kind of sort of storytelling. Like, obviously, there's nothing new and original we're talking about because humanity has lived for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a reason why these stories keep being told again and again because there's new generations that need to be taught these themes and lessons again and again. So like, I don't know, if you're like trying to be like, if you're trying to be deep for the sake of being deep, then like that's not it. Like, if you really want to be deep, like you have to like dig into yourself and be like, okay, like what's the story that I would like
Mm-hmm.
and a lesson that I would want to learn,
Yeah.
while also making it visually engaging and also like entertaining.
Exactly. And I feel like this is kind of
Like that.
why I ended up going more towards TV as film's going on. I like, even now, it's like I'm way more interested in working in TV in the future because I feel like it's less of all of that. Like,
Mhm.
Friends is not deep, but Friends is a very, very, very highly regarded sitcom. So it's like, you don't, like, there's still a complex issue with a lot of people in TV. Because I think anywhere where there's just a lot of white men running the show, there's just going to be a lot of that kind of stuff and a lot of superiority complexes and all that. But then it's like less about trying to be all like artsy and this and that and more just like, yeah, let's just make something entertaining. Like, you have to, because then
Mm.
you have to think about it as like what's like before, like, because before streaming it was like, what is, you have to make something that's going to keep people coming back every single week, so then it like has to be
Right.
entertaining. So like, then I feel like it's like it has to be entertaining, but also like, people need to be able to like the characters or relate to the characters and like get invested in them and their storylines. So it's like the storytelling needs to still be pretty good too.
When obviously like people would watch or read your stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the goal is to actually have your words linger on after they flip through the last page or after they like see the credits of a movie. Like if you're like one of my professors had said, because we were having our final showcase for our films, and she was like, people are going to watch your movie and they're going to forget about it right after. That's going to happen 90% of the time. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to be okay with that because there are so many stories and movies being made. And if yours is like forgotten the minute the movie turns off, then that's okay. Like, that's for you to keep trying. But it's a
Mm-hmm.
goal for you to be like, you have to get to the level of storytelling where your words and your like visuals have to linger on after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is why I think, like, in my opinion, a bad movie is only bad if it's boring and has nothing to say.
Mm.
Like,
Batman
you can
versus
make a bad
Superman.
movie. Yeah. Like, you can make a bad movie. Like, when I mean bad, like, you can make a bad movie but still keep it iconic. Like,
Shark Boy and Lava
Batman
Girl.
versus. Yeah. We're like, there's a cultural stamp that is left on your movie that has some value for it. But if your movie is literally the most shallow, boring thing that has no depth whatsoever, then what are you adding on, really?
What are you adding to society? Things to consider. I
Yeah.
feel like this is stuff that like we had to learn on our own in film school just in reaction to the way people would act around us.
Well, yeah, because it'd be like when people would pitch their stories, it's just kind of like, well, what am I supposed to take away from this?
And the way the screenwriting program was set up, it was like junior year was devoted to like writing a feature length film, and then senior year was devoted to writing a TV show, either a or I think you could write another. I don't even remember. I think you could write another film for senior year, or I could go into TV. I already forgot. Wow, I I cannot tell you even 90% of the stories that I encountered from my peers during that time.
Right.
That's how little they
Mm-hmm.
stuck with me. I can recall a couple because I remember thinking, wow, this is actually really good. Like when it was happening and when we were like, reading it every week and giving notes and all that. But now the other stories, I can like barely remember what people were doing. because it's like it
Okay.
just didn't stand out to me. And it's like also now I'm like a script reader for the Austin Film Festival, not to brag. And
Wow.
yeah, like I don't want to be making sweeping statements as a reader, but it's like that's the same. I encounter the same thing where it's like not every story is memorable, and I think that speaks
Yeah.
to like the quality of your story is how memorable it really is versus like I feel like a lot of people in like the film school space or submitting to film festivals just like a lot of it is confidence. Like a lot of people act with more confidence than necessarily like skill or talent or fleshed out story ideas.
Yeah, I feel like I am the opposite
Yeah, no,
of that. Not like
I
I think I'm the
really.
hot shit,
Oh yeah,
but
no. But it's like the like I like try to be very like this needs to be really good or have some. It needs to just not be bad. Like I don't have like the confidence that anything I could just conjure up is just gonna be good, which I think like a lot
Mm.
of people in film school sometimes have. Part of it is just also how professors respond to you, and if professors will just
Well,
validate mediocrity or like be like, no, you could come up with something better.
okay, so like my professors, I think for the most part, I enjoyed learning from a lot of them, mostly because when I was registering for classes, I would typically sign up for a professor who was not white or a man.
Mm.
So if I got a professor that was a woman of color, I was like, okay, like I'm ready for like a perspective that is not white. Like how does this person approach filmmaking? And usually when I had professors who are like people of color or women of color, basically anyone who's like not really white or a male a lot of the time. I'm not saying like all white men, but
Most of
I mean
them.
there's a trend. There's like a
There is a
trend.
big trend.
But I feel like when it comes to learning from filmmakers who typically don't have their stories told often, it brings a certain authenticity and like passion and desire and also kind of like this intimate look into filmmaking that makes me feel inspired to want to make films because like a lot of the stories that I write come from my personal experiences, and so to see that in someone who's like older and like have made their own like feature films and everything is really admirable to see because it's like, oh, like here's like a tangible example of what could be like down the line for me in the future that I thought would be really helpful. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for all the women of color or just people of color who are in film school or ever pursuing arts degrees, I recommend taking classes from professors who are not white men.
Yeah, I did not have
That is to
I
say,
did not have good luck with that in screenwriting at all. I don't think I was never taught by a woman of color ever in screenwriting, and I think I had a grand total of one professor of color my freshman year,
mm,
and then the rest were all white in some capacity or white, and then were either men or women. And some of the women were just not helpful. Like one told another girl in my class to like completely reconsider screenwriting, and I was like, I don't think that's like a constructive way to help somebody with their writing is to tell them to like leave the whole major when they're literally a second semester junior.
I feel like for the most part, I had a lot of professors who were very down to earth about things. Like my junior thesis professor who was like this white woman that I actually like grew really fond of. She was like, "You know what's crazy? Going into filmmaking. Like I think all of us are crazy people for doing this." And then she went on a whole rant being like, "Who would be stupid enough to take on this like career in art form and to go through all this stress and frustration because we were in the process of making our junior films and for like a lot of us it was our first time working with like an actual crew and trying to schedule and permit a lot of things and
Mm-hmm.
there was just this general stress in the classroom that I think all of us kind of bonded through and like grew together from. And she was like, we are all crazy for picking this as a career and I have to applaud all of us for like at the end, like even if our films are bad or not, she's like, you made your first film, that is all I can be proud of. Like you went through the whole process,
Yeah,
congratulations. Like
it's quite a
I don't
feat.
know, like yeah, it for people like I feel like professors who are like, as long as you keep trying, like you're doing
Mm-hmm.
it.
And the
And I
more
mean
you
trying, I
do
mean
it,
like what
the better, the more practice you get.
yeah. And I mean like trying is in like obviously like not doing things like 50%, like you're putting your whole effort in and
Yeah.
like trying to make your things happen.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, and like I had like a good I had like really good professors along the way too, but it's just like, when you get a bad one, that really sticks out and it
Mhm.
really makes you question your whole life.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, I get.
A lot of the professors at our film school are not like, like actual teachers. Like they don't, it's not like with other schools, like they have masters or like PhDs
Oh yeah, or like
in the
super
program. They're
trained
like,
in education or whatever.
yeah, yeah, like they're literally people who work in the industry, which doesn't necessarily mean they'll be good at teaching.
Yup, that's for sure. Or it's like then they can. I could sometimes see in some of they would also have the same complex because it's like they'd made it.
Yeah.
So they were all like, "Oh my god, I'm the shit," and I was like, "Can everybody just calm down? Like y'all
Mm-hmm.
need to chill and stop having like a complex." Oh, and then also the other thing we always talk about is the tortured artist soul.
Oh, yeah. I feel like it was kind of there's this underlying feel of like, oh, are you ready to sell yourself to your art? Which I was never really sold to the idea because even like when I was in college and in film school, I already knew I was like, film school is already a bubble for me. I don't want to be stuck in it, which is why I sought to do things outside of film school, like join
Mm-hmm.
a service
Yeah,
organization and like do other extracurriculars. Because again, like
you need to
if
live
you're
some
being like a
life.
yeah, and it's like if you're being a writer and director, like where else are you supposed to take inspiration from if you're stuck in your film bubble all the time? That's why we have movies like La La Land, like movies about
Oh my
movies
god.
being made.
That is literally, oh my god. I always complain to Christiane about movies because I literally cannot anymore. They get on my nerves so much because I'm just like, stop. We all know that movies are made. We all know that they're usually made by like emo, mediocre men who are so in their feels about being a tortured artist soul or whatever, or thinking having some complex because every woman they've tried to like get with has like rejected them in some like capacity or whatever. And it's just like, why are we like, no, just no more movies about the movie making process, at least not anymore about like that center like white men and like the white male filmmaking experience, because it's like I've had enough. And also because we were also talking about this before we started recording, just like how many like white men on set who are like a lot of like directors but also actors, like because they're like trying to be all like, oh my god, I need to like be so dedicated to my craft, they'll literally like endanger the people around them to like get the best shot or the best take, like the method acting stuff, or like the attacking your
And like,
actors
okay.
without
So
their consent.
here's what's like interesting to me, like from coming from a director's perspective, because it's like I always saw directing as like, oh, you are growing a very vulnerable relationship between you and the actor, because obviously the actor is placing trust in you to help them convey the feelings that you want. And with that, there is a line between like trust and manipulation, which I
Mm-hmm.
feel like directors such as Hitchcock and also Tarantino
Yes.
have been known, and also Joss Whedon have been
Yeah.
known to like cross that line into where they will like emotionally and mentally manipulate their actors
And
into doing
abuse
stuff that they
them.
did not consent to, which I was also like thinking of directors that I really respect and like I don't think manipulating people to get what you want is very dignified.
It's not
Like I
worth
thought,
it. Like, no. Also, it's just why? If you can't make your thing work in that way, then that means you need to come up with a different way or come up with some
mm-hmm.
new thing if it's not turning out the exact way you want it. And also it's like everybody's human. Of course, your perfect vision in your brain of like how people are going to react to something that you write, it might not come true because it's like it's your perfect vision in your brain versus what other humans are like doing and stuff. It's like not an excuse to like just like treat people as like subhuman or whatever. Like
Yeah.
Hitchcock was like, oh, you should treat actors like cattle. And it's like, why don't you treat actors like people? Why don't you treat everybody on your set like a human? so that
Yeah,
your
which is
set is
like
like, because
I
if you have a
just
better like set atmosphere and it's like better like there's no like if you just like the sets are already so stressful, it's like why are you adding to that?
yeah, I feel like it's the responsibility of director to keep up morale on set because you're obviously like the captain of this boat, so you'd want to make sure everyone's having a good time
Yeah, because everybody
there.
else's jobs revolve around like making sure that you can
Mm-hmm.
focus on like your thing. So like how like the best way that everybody can focus on their jobs is making is like not trying to put more burden on them because like literally so many people like I just can't imagine being someone like Joss Whedon or Tarantino or whatever. It's like you're such a highly distinguished director, so you're gonna have a huge crew with all these people who are their purpose in their jobs is they're just trying to make sure that you don't have to worry about all these other things and you can just mainly focus on
Right.
like your vision. And it's like, so why are you gonna take that for granted and like make their jobs worse when they're literally going so out of their way to do all this stuff in their duties just to like
Mm-hmm.
help you? And it's just like why?
And it's also like, for like actors, because obviously they're also in a position where they have to be in a very emotional headspace to be able to
Mm-hmm.
act. Like, wouldn't you want to be in like an easygoing environment where like everything feels loose and like not stressed out so they would feel encouraged to put their best performance on?
Yeah.
Like, it feels more like, oh, like we're like hyping each other up to do the best that we can rather than, oh, I'm ready to like tear you down to get the best performance out of you.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't make any sense. And it's like literally the only examples I can think of these like horrible things on set happening are literally just like white men causing it. Like the whole method acting thing, like Jared Leto sending all kinds of gross stuff to his castmates on the set of Suicide Squad to like act like the Joker. Meanwhile, what did Margot Robbie do to be literally Harley Quinn, who's just, essentially the same concept but a female? I think she basically did not do that. She didn't. I don't remember her sending weird packages to her castmates and disturbing stuff. I think she literally just, read her script, took her time with it, got into her headspace, acted, did the acting part, since she's an actor, without making other people's lives worse. So I don't know why, like, men have to do that. Like, women seem to do it fine without having to, like, go
Yeah.
out of their way to make everybody else around them miserable to be like, oh, no, no, no,
Also,
I'm trying to get in the character headspace. And then it's like, women are like, I just read my lines and I act.
isn't it like kind of like ironic how Jared Leto's like all of the scenes that Jared Leto shot for Suicide Squad, like he only got like how little screen time in that movie,
And it's like, dude,
and
he's
it's
not
like,
even in this. He's not even in their squad. He's not even in
yeah,
the title. He's like supporting. He's like supporting to supporting cast because it was really about like what is the main guy, whatever the main guy was, plus Harley Quinn. Like they were like the main people, and then it was like the rest of the actual squad was like kind of supporting them. And then,
mm-hmm,
like Jared Leto was like below that. So he was like supporting.
yeah,
And so but then he was all like, "Oh no, I need to like met male like animal bodies to my
yeah, and
castmates."
then
Like for what?
he got really butthurt. He got really butthurt that like he wasn't in a lot of the scenes in the final cut, which like honestly like
I would
it's
have
a
cut
whole
him out
thing
entirely.
in like when it comes to filmmaking, like you have when it comes to the post production process and the editing process, you have to detach yourself from however much time and effort went into actually shooting the thing because it's not about, putting the things that took the most effort into the movie. It's all about making the best possible story ever. So, if
Mm-hmm.
the shot or the performance that took like so much time and effort to do didn't make it, well then maybe it wasn't what was needed to make the story good. Which
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying like Suicide Squad is not the best example because it's not really good, but when it comes to like other
Yeah.
stories of higher quality,
Oh, like
like you
the
can't be
the
mad.
4 hour cut of Justice League.
Or yeah, I refuse to watch it, but I also refuse to watch Joss Whedon's cut of Justice League too. So
So two birds, one stone.
that's yeah,
Just why do men? And it's like I feel like this all goes back to film school because it's like how the people who like grow up into like the men who cause this stuff on film sets and in the industry, like like it all like real like I mean a lot of it all like just with like how entitled people act anyway, like that all starts as like a kid or whatever, but it's just like I feel like a lot of how people act in the film world, if they went to film school, that's where it starts. And it's like if their behavior or like their whatever that they're doing was validated and film and tolerated or whatever in film school, then like they're gonna be like, okay, I can just do that like when I go on into the workforce, because like other people will
Mm-hmm.
validate me for it. And like white men seem to not want to hold other white men like accountable, I feel like. So then
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
basically validate it by doing nothing. So then we end up with all these people in all these super powerful positions in Hollywood making all these like TV shows and like films and stuff and literally endangering other people on set, making people want to quit
Yeah.
acting altogether, making everybody around them
Yeah.
so miserable. And it's like for what? Like a
Yeah.
mediocre at best a mediocre product at the end of it, like
Yeah, I mean, like when you're talking about that, it brought a couple names to mind. Specifically, one guy who made a lot of women uncomfortable when he used to work at our school's media
mm.
center.
I feel like I remember this happening, but I don't remember I don't think I knew did I know the person personally?
Yes, he was in one of your classes, and you often talk about this story to one of our friends because
Me slow blinking trying to remember. I feel like I
when his
blocked it.
favorite movie, when his favorite movie is Inglorious Bastards, and he
Oh.
said he wanted to be like a studio executive, even though he kind of gave off pervy vibes.
Oh yeah. Okay, now I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Just like why? You have a complex and for what? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's film school. If you put in the effort, everybody's getting an A. Like there's nothing you're gonna get besides, I guess, validation from the other men, and then making everybody else feel like trash. Just
Yeah,
why?
I don't
Like
know. It's a film school. Like I'm grateful for the opportunity that I got to go to film school, but at the same
same,
time,
same.
like I'm not afraid to rip it apart.
Yeah, and it's like so much of like, how much like film school like reacts to, or like that environment like reacts to like your stories or your whatever, just like you trying to be vulnerable with your own life experiences that diverge from, maybe that white male, tortured white male experience or whatever. And it's like that's still like a valuable experience to like in a way to like grow as
Mm-hmm.
a storyteller. So,
Yeah. After all your time in film school, is there any one lesson that you remember from film school that you carry on in your storytelling journey slash
mm,
career?
that's a
Like
good
anything that
question.
wasn't directly taught to you or indirectly you learned just from your
Or
experience.
just indirectly. Well, I was gonna say my
Mm-hmm.
favorite piece of writing advice I ever got, which I still think about a lot when I write, not even in screenwriting, but I feel like this applies to a lot, is like, this is like very much just about writing and not about anything else, but like when you're writing a scene, you need to the best way to to approach writing a scene is get into the scene as late as you can and get out of it as soon as you can. Don't waste people's time. So it's
Mm.
like let's streamline this along and it keeps the flow going. As far as actual just, interpersonal things, make friends. That's networking. But also it's like I feel like that's a really
But like
basic
make
thing.
genuine.
But like make genuine friends. Don't just be making friends like just to be like, oh my god, you're gonna advance my career. But it's like also because if you when you befriend like minded people who might be going through the same frustrating experiences as you in like spaces like film school, then it's like, when one among you like kind of moves up the ladder, like you can all move up together because then they're gonna be, they're gonna get access to a whole new like, world of like contacts and like probably other like-minded people who are trying to support new and upcoming
Mm-hmm.
people who are like people of color or like women or the LGBTQ plus writers and stuff, like, like for example like Gloria Calderon Kellett, the showrunner for the One Day at a Time Netflix reboot, like she'll occasionally like be tweeting things about like guys like send me like, the like Asian actors or like guys like promote like your like if you're a person of color like promote your writing stuff here or promote other writers of color like under this tweet and stuff. And it's like now a lot of like people like that who are actually able to get their foot into the door in the industry and are getting these opportunities are trying to kind of, reach a hand back to help the next person along who can then help the next person up along. So like joining that chain and contributing to that chain is definitely a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But what about you?
I have to agree with building relationships in film school. And like Madison said, like obviously don't like create shallow relationships in hopes that it's just gonna put you up a step higher on the ladder. I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of the friends that I've made in film school, like you said, it's because we all bonded through this feeling of like, oh, we don't really feel validated in a lot of our classes because the white people don't get it. So a lot
Mhm.
of my friends tend to be like women and queer people of color
Yep.
just because like it's a different perspective that's usually not highlighted a lot of the time, not just
Yeah.
in film school but in just the general scope of film in general.
Mhm.
I think my biggest piece of advice that I've gotten, and I can't remember who I've gotten it from, but I try to take with me the idea of there's an interconnectedness between specificity and universality,
Mhm.
because I feel like my life experiences are very specific to how I grew up. Because it's like, one,
Yeah.
I'm Filipino from the South who grew up in kind of this very specific community.
Mhm.
But I feel like a lot of the stories that I do enjoy watching tend to come from people of different backgrounds, but still I'm able to relate to it. So, with the stories that you write, like write according to what you know and like dig into that,
Mhm.
because like in a way it'll also be able to reach that level of universality where there's going to be a message that like everyone can relate to at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's my
That's
piece
a
of
good one.
advice. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so this episode has gone pretty long now. I
It's
feel
a
like there's probably
headache.
going to be more episodes where we'll talk more about film schools. I feel like we
Oh,
barely like
we haven't even talked about like the internship life.
we haven't talked about internship. We also haven't talked about our experiences going to film class together, like world cinema,
Oh my god, that
understanding foreign
you
films.
mean watching things that are Freudian? Imagine I said that with
Yeah.
sparkle emojis around it.
Yeah, but I don't really know who in our film class would listen to our podcast.
Probably,
So,
yeah, probably none of them. I don't know.
but if any of our friends are listening, hi.
Yeah, hi.
I really
Thanks for
value our
surviving.
friendship in film school. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you for
Okay.
listening.
To the general audience members, thank you for listening to another episode of Pineapple Headache. Madison, would you say that this episode has been a headache?
This has been such a headache, and it is a headache that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life, I think, as a film school graduate.
Amazing.
Yay!
Okay, stay tuned for more film school memories somewhere down the line.
Nay!
Okay, goodbye.
See you at the next headache!